what we're going to talk about here tonight, because my videos usually include lessons, and I'm talking about things that I believe will support you in becoming a stronger version of yourself, because they're things that I've experimented with and integrated into my life and have allowed me to live a beautiful life. You know, I have a great life, and there are a handful of principles that I've followed, and a lot of them revolve around health. In fact, you know, that's the majority of it. You know, I always talk about going back to your body, and you know, this is your game. You know, worry about your game piece. When I say things like that, I mean like you got to take care of yourself, and that, you know, so that's been my message. You know, become the strongest version of yourself, and then through that, you have the power to empower others. And for me, that just sounds like a recipe for a great world to live in. But over the past several months, I've been trying to literally ground the ideas, because I just answered questions. I just spit things out. You know, I never formulate any true strategy for you. And I think it's a part of my responsibility to consolidate a lot of the things I've spoken about. And I've spoken about many different things. Of course, tonight we're here to talk about water, and I have videos on water. You know, if you haven't watched my videos on water and you don't know my perspective on water at this point, then it'd be very easy for you to just go and search something I said about it several years ago, a few years ago. And I even go as far as to talk about elements of psychology and how our body is affected by our mind and vice versa. So in order to consolidate all these ideas and bring them to you in a presentable way that you can utilize, giving you tangible methods to integrate these principles into your life, I consult experts. And of course, many of you know Paul Chek has been a tremendous mentor in that way to me, an expert. Has given me lots of freedom to explore a lot of ideas related to vitality and health. And of course, the tremendous amount of books that I read and relationships I have in order to continue to educate myself so that I can implement various strategies for becoming a stronger version of myself and then teach you. And I think my greatest form of teaching is acting, by doing it myself. So a part of the past 6 months has been me having the integrity to not only speak about these things that I know are helpful, but implementing them myself, and therefore giving myself the authority to speak on various topics. You know, that's where true authority comes from, when you're the author, when you're creating this, you know, when you're being authentic. You know, the root word is similar. So one of the 6 principles that I often talk about, and Paul Chek talks about, is drinking water. You know, of course, that's one of 6. We've got to keep our mind right. We've got to keep our breathing right. You know, we got to keep our nutrition right. We've got to exercise. But without water being a principle in becoming the strongest version of yourself, you're leaving out 75% of what a human being is. You, like I said once before, we are like hairy bags of water with teeth. I heard this described once before, and it's fascinating if you think about it. 75% water. You know, our planet is what it is because of water, and regardless of your stance on evolution, it's pretty damn ironic that our blood has a very similar composition of minerals and whatnot to seawater. You know, we are water. So it makes sense that that's a principle. It's something that we need to pay close attention to and do the absolute best that we can in order to get our hands on the best of it. You know, I think I heard that only about 3% of the world's water, 3%. We live in a water ball, and only 3% of it is accessible to human beings for drinking, right? And if you live in a society that has internet, obviously you're watching me right now, then you live in a society that has running water, and that's kind of a new invention for humankind, you know? So gratitude for water. So technology has brought us running water, and it's a good thing. My parents are from Belize, and they lived in a country where my parents had to back water. And when they say back, that means put the shit on your back and carry it. My mother would go to the stream and back water back. You know, she'd back water to her home where they would use some of the water for bathing, some of the water for cooking, and some of the water for drinking. And that's what they drank, was the water of the earth, what the earth could provide them with. And of course, that's utopian. You know, that's why they have running. That's why they have like bubbling springs and waterfalls on the water bottles that we drink, because it's utopian. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just go outside and sip out of the ground? But that's no longer a reality. It's no longer safe. So my parents come to the United States, and there's running water here. And just knowing instinctively, because they grew up drinking water from the earth, that their children ought to drink water. My father would often say, if we're hungry, he'd say, drink water and go to bed, because that was basically what he did when he was hungry, because there was no, when we say we're hungry in developed countries, we just say, I don't want none of the shit that's in the cabinet. When he was hungry, it was drink water, because that's it, and go to bed. So we'd say that, so drink water and go to bed. And drink water was a constant theme in our home. And of course, it wasn't the water he grew up drinking, but it was water nonetheless, and it came from a faucet. And you're grateful for that. But you'd think that something that you're made 75% up of, you're going to want to ingest, right? You're literally drinking and ingesting life. When you take a shower, you're letting life go down your body. It's an incredible thing. But here I am, 6, 7, 8 years old. My dad telling me to drink water, and I don't want to drink water. I don't want to drink what's coming out of the faucet. It tastes horrible. How many of you remember being children and not liking to drink water? So of course my parents, we got to drink liquids, so it became Kool-Aid and iced tea. So it's municipal water that the instinct of a child recognizes as deplorable, just it rejects it, rejects it. And then sweetening it up with some sugar, because that's a drug of choice. So I can't stand here and say that I grew up drinking water because it was nasty, or I had to put stuff in it to make it taste good. And I say this because I think a lot of you can relate to what I'm talking about. I'd hope. So as I grow up and the internet comes about, my education, it's interesting, I live in a generation between there's the dark ages and then the internet. So I get introduced to the internet, I get introduced to so many ideas, that weren't available prior to it. And I discovered that, maybe the water coming from a faucet ain't so good after all. And that's why you don't want it. Long story short, I began studying health. I decided to become a personal trainer. I'm introduced to a holistic viewpoint on fitness, and discover that water is a principle of life. It's a principle of fitness. If your fitness clients aren't drinking water, then there's a problem. But we also have discovered that the water that we're drinking is highly contaminated with various stuff that ain't so good for you. We'll put it that way. I think of what I really rejected as a child with the water was the chlorine. You could smell chlorine. Chlorine's a tough one to let pass your senses. You got a pool, you know what I'm talking about. You open up that chlorine bucket, and your eyes are itchy for days. This stuff is chemicals. It's poison. So there I discovered the reasons why not wanting water, and learned a little bit more about what kind of water I should be drinking. And the education I received spoke about a few different things, including the parts per million, or ppm, of a particular water. It needs to have a certain balanced minerals, right? The water, we're made of minerals also, and we can have water that can even strip us of minerals. That was very important. So that being considered, as well as the pH of a water. And the pH of a water has something to do with its lack of, and I have an expert here who's going to do a little bit better job than me, but it has like a corrosive effect, if you will, if it's too acidic. And it has like a cleansing effect if it's a higher pH. And the acidity and pH can be changed based on, I don't know, Wade will speak about it in a moment once I stop my ranting. So those were the things that I discovered, and I began drinking bottled water, and particularly Evian. And I'd walk around with Evian bottles, and many of my friends would do so also, because we understood the importance of drinking this water, because it's more life enhancing. And I remember at one point, you know, I've got a job, I've got a career, I'm raising a family, and I'm spending $50 a week at least on water. So here I'm drinking Evian water because it's healthier for me, spending about $50 a week. And besides that, like, I've got so many water bottles all over the place. I became like an expert. My wife will tell you, I think she's watching. I'd take off the screw and crush the bottle and screw it back on so it goes small, and I just have them littered all over the place. So, you know, that seems pathological now, right? That being said, I discovered other things, other ways by which I can get good water, you know, the best I could fathom, you know, that was available, and started investing in water cleansing machines. Now, you've seen my videos. You know, I'm very transparent about these things, and I show you like that in the background. I say, you see that right there? That's my reverse osmosis water machine. And the reason why I share those things with you is because I myself am obsessed with drinking high quality water, and here's what I do. So I tell you a little bit about it. You know, as technology evolves, and as I evolve, as I learn more things, you know, I want to make sure that I have the resources to take advantage of higher discoveries. And for many years, I used the reverse osmosis water machine, knowing that it, although it tastes really good, I mean, my sister calls it sweet water, but there's no sugar in it. The water is just so tasty. It destroys the mineral composition and does nothing to enhance the pH of the water. You know, two very important things that I discovered about quality of water. So it wasn't but a year ago, probably, that I met Wade Lightheart, and this guy dazzles me right away with his knowledge on about everything, which that always interests me. You know, the Renaissance person really dazzles me. So Wade and I are having all types of extraordinary conversations. Of course, he was a personal trainer, so a lot of it revolved around fitness, you know, fitness and health. And we get to the topic of water, and I think I know everything because I've read a couple of books, and Wade just pours out a chalkboard education on me on the various aspects of what you want in water and why. And I think that's really what really interests me more than anything, is that with the new information and technology to take advantage of it, well, so what? You know, well, what's the big deal? You got expensive water, or you got a cool water machine. Like, what, you know, besides feeling good about yourself, what is it actually doing for you health-wise, which I think is going to be very fascinating for us all to hear. So that's my introduction to Wade. I know it's more of a story about me, but Wade is a very fascinating guy, very educated on the things he's going to talk about. What you're going to discover tonight is the latest in science on hydration, water, and performance. So Wade, thanks for joining us, bud.
Hey, great to be here, Elliot, and thank you for everyone that's joining the call today. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and share something that's really passionate about. And one of the things I love about you, Elliot, is how passionate and transparent about what it is that you are doing on a daily basis and the people that you inspire. So great to be here with your crew. I guess I get a little background here. Today's talk we're going to talk about is called...
Wait, let me stop you for a second. Is my camera still on? I'm going to take my camera off so that the focus can be on you and the hydration breakthrough.
Okay. Kim, good. Let me know when we'll let Kim get the technical side so we have the right picture.
Okay, go for it. All right, go ahead, man. Are we good?
You're good, Wade.
Sweet. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is what I call hydration breakthrough for athletes. And like Elliot, I've been a student of water and health and high performance for many years. And about 7.5 years ago, I was introduced to water technology. Just right off the bat, I'll quickly put an idea out there. Traditionally, we have been focused as a population in recent years on filtration. So first, there was the development historically, as Elliot was saying, about the, you know, making water systems, piping water to people's houses, a relatively new thing. And then as we discovered that the chemicalization of water and that type of stuff was causing problems, there became a variety of filtration systems out there. Everything that you can imagine, and reverse osmosis was being one of them. Well, now what has emerged is the restructuring of water and how you can use technology to change the structure of water, and then that water can have a variety of benefits or functions that vary significantly. We're going to talk a little bit about this today. We're also going to talk a little bit specifically about how a certain type of water can actually optimize your hydration, it can improve your recovery, and it can improve your health and performance. And I can say that from experience because 7.5 years ago, I was introduced to the water. And what had happened is, I'll give you a little background, is in 2003, I was preparing for the Mr. Universe contest and followed all the best dietary stuff that you could in the world and the best training advice you could go in the world and all that sort of stuff. And at the end of that contest, after the contest, I gained 42 pounds of fat and water in 11 weeks. And I met a medical doctor a little bit after. I mean, I went from Mr. Universe to Mr. Marshmallow. And I was like, how is this possible? I have the best coach in the world. I'm following the nutrition. I've been doing this for 16 years. I'm well schooled. How is this? I don't know. He said, well, there's something you don't know, Wade. And I said, what's that? And he said, your body has become too acidic from your training and dietary practices. And this is quite common in athletes. And it's what cuts short a lot of their careers, injuries and stuff like that. I was like, what do I need to do? And he said, you need to get your body alkaline. I said, well, how do I do that? And he said, well, you got to go on a completely raw food diet. You got to take $1,500 worth of supplements, and then you'll rebuild yourself. And it worked. I got my body into a more alkaline state. However, that's not very, it's not something that most people are going to do, as a lot of people don't have the resources to do that. So I always was looking for ways to improve hydration and alkalinity via other technology. And about 4 years after that, I was introduced to this water. And when I drank it, I was very skeptical. I'm like, okay, I know everything about water. And that's a mistake when you say that, but it's easy to get complacent. And I was drinking a water that went through this filtration process, and it went through 7 layers of minerals, and it went past magnets, and it was spun in a machine. I thought I had the best water. And anyways, I finally went to get this class, and sure enough, I tasted this water and I felt different. And I drank 3 or 4 glasses right away, and it went into my body quickly, and I was noticed. And I did a little test. I jumped up and down, and the water wasn't sloshing in my body. And I'm like, wow, how's that possible? And so basically, I'm going to explain what happened. Short notice, in 3 weeks, I was drinking this water. It radically changed my athletic performance. I was able to come out of retirement, capture some more titles in the bodybuilding world, and went on to write the book that I showed you, because there is virtually no high-performance athletes in North America at the time now that were using this water. It was a medical technology. Now, that book got circulated around into some interesting communities, and that led to a worldwide phenomenon that is now happening at the highest level of sports and performance. Many professional athletes and that stuff are using this type of water, because once you've been on it, your ability to train harder, faster, and recover better is significantly improved. So let's go into that. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the science first. There's a fellow by the name of William Agger, and I would encourage anybody, if they have any questions or Elliot, if you need to stop me, go ahead. Mm-hmm. He just won a Nobel Prize for aquaporins. And aquaporins are the things on your cells that look like a chain link fence that allows liquids to go in and go out, and that's based on surface tension or osmotic pressure. He says that 95% of the population is chronically dehydrated, which is, it's amazing considering how big the bottled water industry, and that we have tap water and all this stuff. Like, how is that possible? So what we're going to do is we're going to see that we're going to get down to the basics. I mean, everybody knows that adequate hydration is absolutely necessary for optimal athletic performance. I mean, I don't think there's anybody who would argue that, but very few people actually test to see whether they're fully hydrated, or actually know when they're dehydrated to the point where they can put themselves in danger or injury. And just so you know, most injuries occur thanks to chronic dehydration. So what happens, let's go into this. Now, this technology is not new.
Hey, wait, so I do have a question. I'm sorry, man. I mean, that's a fascinating statement, but how is that the case? How are injuries related to dehydration?
We're going to get into that in just a minute because
Good, thank you.
we're going to talk about that because that's a super big question about acidity and the breakdown of mineral content in your connective tissues and bones. So what I'm going to share with you this, when you're looking at water quality, so I'm just going to make a note on that because we're going to get to that in just a minute. When you're looking at water quality, we're looking at several things. You're looking at the purity of water, which is something we've been looking at for a while. You're looking at the electrical charge of the water, the molecular size and structure, or how wet a water is, if you will, and then the pH or alkalinity. Now, what's interesting is, as we've talked about, reverse osmosis, which is one of the common filtration products, has an effect that takes all of the minerals out. It's very good at purifying the water. What happens, though, is it becomes highly acidic. In other words, it'll sometimes leach chemicals out of the plastic into the water, and you can check that out on The Disappearing Male, a CBC documentary about the effects of that. But the other thing is it starts robbing minerals out of your connective tissues and bones. And when you do that, what happens is that makes your ligaments, tendons, these types of things, bones, more susceptible to injury. So I'll explain that in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. So let me let's go to the first slide here when we talk about the electrical charge of water, because that's something that is relatively new. Electrical charge is required in water throughout the planet. That's why people feel really good if you're by an ocean. You're walking by an ocean and waves are crashing in. That's creating what's called an ionization effect. Okay, you're creating negative ions, which have a negative charge, which your body breathes and uses these electrons for energy, vitality, feeling good. Same thing if you're by a waterfall, or same thing if you go for a walk outside after a lightning storm. There's been a massive release of electrical ions. Now, conversely, those are positively charged ions. Now, on the other hand, there's positively charged ions that aren't so good for you. Things like that come in purified water, bottled water, and reverse osmosis water. When you store water in a plastic bottle, and just so you know, for people who are purchasing water, the average is 3 months to 2 years before the water has been bottled and then when you actually consume it. And imagine sitting a glass of water out in your cupboard for 3 months before you drank it. What would it taste like? So in order to make it taste good, oftentimes bottled waters will add various chemicals in order to make it taste good. And the other factor is leaching in. We'll get into that. But when the plastics start to leach into the water, that creates what's called free radicals. Free radicals are positively charged ions that do damage to the body. They start breaking down your cells. They start slowing down recovery. They're the things that contribute to the aging and degeneration effect.
So wait, quick question. So it sounds like plastics are the problem, right? And I mean, like, we can't seem to get away from it. So prior to all this plastic in our environment, was water of had a better rate on this scale here?
Well, absolutely. If you found, say, for example, a natural spring water.
No, but not even that. Like, I'm saying when we had running water, say like in New York City, prior to all of the plastics that are being used today, obviously.
Yes.
That water was healthier.
Absolutely. I'll refer to a wonderful documentary called The Disappearing Male by CDC. And what they're suggesting, actually, if there's scientific validation, it's not a suggestion, that the plastics that water and beverage, a variety of other beverages are being served in, are leaching in and creating phytoestrogens, which is crushing testosterone levels and causing genetic mutations that is affecting all male populations from tadpoles to humans. It's a stunning documentary.
So it's not only screwing up the oxidation reduction potential here, but it's this is an extra addition to the problem is the phytoestrogens.
Absolutely. And yeah, exactly. So if anybody out there is drinking bottled water, for at the very minimum, drink it out of a glass bottle, because of course all of us want to keep our testosterone levels high as we're training and that sort of thing. Plastics definitely have a significant effect on your testosterone levels and effect on on your potential offspring as well. And as I said, don't take my word for it. Go to that
Right.
that documentary.
Right. And one more quick question before you continue. So reverse osmosis doesn't address this. It doesn't address the xenoestrogens, or does it?
Actually, reverse osmosis is okay from that perspective,
Okay.
unless it's served in a bottle. So, for example, major bottles like brands like Dasani or that sort of stuff, those are reverse osmosis waters stored in plastic. So what you have is you have a clean water, but it has acidic. It's very acidic. They put preservatives in it to stabilize the flavor.
Right.
And then you have plastics leaching into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Continue.
It's not painting a pretty picture, but that's just the way it is. We're not here.
No, and I just think about how much bottled water I've drank in the past.
I was the same way. You know, I was 6 liters a day drinking out of plastic bottles at 15 years ago. So I get it.
Right,
worse than that,
too. So yeah.
It gets worse though, because now we're dealing with tap waters and sports drinks and sodas, which are highly, highly acidic. And if anybody watched that little video prior to this with Bobby Gridelli doing a demonstration, it'll actually show how much free radicals are in each one of these beverages. And one of the things that I have with all the clients that I coach is the first thing I get them off, I say, get off sports drinks and get off sodas. Yeah. These pre-workouts and pre-energy and post-workouts and all these things with all this chemicals and goop and stuff in it, it's doing more damage than it is helping you. You might get a little buzz out of whatever the chemical cocktail is, but the price down the road is serious. It's like paying for your mortgage with your credit card. Not a good plan. The other thing is tap water. Most municipalities produce water and they add chemicals to it, whether that's either chlorine, fluoride, or chloramine, which is a combination of chlorine and ammonia. Can you imagine? And they use this to kill bugs. Now, we have to, I'm not here to condemn anybody. The reality is prior to using chemicals to kill the bacteria, there was all sorts of waterborne illnesses that people would get. They added the chemicals, and that killed the bugs. So it solved one problem, but the thing is, when you drink this stuff for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, chlorine turns into chloramine inside the body, and that is a carcinogen. It's one of the reasons I'm an advisor to the American Anti-Cancer Institute, dealing with what's the corollary effect of these type of things. The other thing is, if you look at fluoride, its effect on pineal gland and weight gain, there's an amazing chart. You can Google it online about fluoride rates and obesity. It seems to have a significant effect on obesity rates, fluoride. And then, of course, you have like sodas, where you're now showing that aluminum from that is contributing to Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. So anytime you store something in a container, you're going, especially water takes on whatever property is. It's the ultimate solvent. So one of the things I like to encourage people is to imagine your water molecule is like a blank DVD. And you can put just about any program on that movie. You can put a documentary, you can put a horror film, you can whatever. And so when you understand the structure of water, what you'll find is that whatever you add to it or do to it changes the movie. It's like you can erase that file and put on the health show, or you can erase that file and put on the horror show. Either way. So when we're looking for a water, we're looking for a water that has a negative charge. If you found a really good spring, let's say that was bubbling up in the mountains of the Andes or something like that, or all these long-living people that you hear about, chances are it would have a negative charge. And when you drink it, you feel it. You feel very fresh and refreshing. It goes into your body better. It's absorbed better. It's utilized by your body. Now, antioxidants been studied. Things like vitamin C, green tea, cod liver oil, fruits and vegetables. We eat these because of the antioxidants. And all they are is really negatively charged ions that the body uses. With this water, Kangen water that you and I are both drinking, we're able to create a negative charge that far exceeds any antioxidant in the planet. And we're able to make virtually unlimited quantities of it at a fraction of the cost it would cost a person for nutritional supplements. So when I was rebuilding myself from the Mr. Universe contest way back when, I was spending $1,500 a month and going to a completely perfected diet that's on the radical extreme in order to do what I'm able to do in 3 weeks with a person putting them on water. I mean, that's how potent this type of technology is. The second part I want to get to, did we cover that just so you understand the ions? Are you clear on that, Elliot?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Feel free to interject because I can go down so many rabbit holes with this. The second part I want to talk about is the ABCs of acid-alkaline balance. Now, 10 years ago, you would walk into a grocery store, you walk into a fitness store, you didn't see any alkaline water. Now, if you walk into most places like Whole Foods even, probably 20 to 30% of the waters that you'll see served, and there's literally like hundreds of kinds of water nowadays. Water has become a huge business. And you'll see about 20 to 30% of them are alkaline water. And alkaline water is a very interesting topic because it's partly true and partly incorrect. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to debunk the myths and share with people what they need to know. Your human body is, if you look at this chart, runs at about 7.365. That's what your blood is. So you can remember that by 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So just over that slightly green sign if you're looking at the chart. Now, your blood will always maintain that pH. And it does that by adding what's called bicarbonate buffers. So if I drink a soda that's highly acidic, it's an acidity somewhere around in the low 2s to 3s, which is is like 50,000 times more acidic than my blood, I'm going to have to take minerals out of my connective tissues and bones, which are called bicarbonate buffers, in order to neutralize those free radicals, in order to neutralize the pH. So when you talked about why do I get injured, well, here's what happens. So you got said athlete, he's out there training hard every day, he's following your program, he's working out hard, maybe he's playing football every day in the hot sun, he's drinking lots of bottled water. Well, he's not replacing the ions in that. The water he's drinking is maybe 100 to 1,000 times more acidic than his blood pH. And so he starts using more and more of these bicarbonate buffers. Well, where's the body going to get them? Well, chances are it's going to be very difficult to replace all those bicarbonate buffers just from diet alone.
Where would it come from in our diet? Like, how could you increase it in your diet?
Well, typically any like green leafy vegetables, these type of things, fruits, vegetables, most of the green foods, the stuff that you see at the Whole Food salad bar, that's the things that are going to boost your mineral content.
Right. So if you're dehydrated and you're not eating vegetables, you're basically you're robbing your body of resources and not putting it back.
Exactly. And then what happens? Your body is always going to go to, well, where do I get my minerals from? It's going to get the minerals first from the connective tissues and bones. And the connective tissue is a big, big factor, especially people involved in strength sports. And I'll cite a couple of examples that are really interesting. Remember a few years ago, Wes Welker was running down the field for the New England Patriots. No one around him, and he blows his knees out. He wasn't hit. He wasn't. Like, why did that happen? And here in Vancouver, we had a goaltender, Roberto Luongo, who's now down in Florida. And I remember watching him one day slide across the crease, a move that he's done millions of times, and suddenly he blows his groin out. Why did that happen? It's not because those particular movements were anything that were normal for those athletes. They're highly trained athletes. They do this all the time. But the cumulative effect of being chronically dehydrated and chronically acidic led to a disruption of their connective tissue. And so what shows up as an injury or a tear or whatever, people go, oh, well, he injured himself. But let's look at what contributed to that over time. And what's interesting is my friend, Shan Stratton, who's a sports nutritionist to over 30 major league sports teams, ran an NFL football camp, and in conjunction with Dr. Horst Filzer in Arizona a few years ago when the lockout was on. They had, I believe, 56 athletes going through what would be like a training camp prior to the season. There was no season at the time, so they had to do an alternative camp. Now, usually the injury rates for those guys are at 20%. So if you start out with 50 guys, let's say, you're going to expect 10 of those guys are going to be injured by that camp. It's just the numbers that they expect.
Right.
Well, they put them all on Kangen water. They drew their blood between things, between exercise rounds and everything. And what was really fascinating is, number one, the Kangen water was able to get them their pH back to balance rather quickly. Number two, they had longer endurance. In other words, they performed better over time. And the third part was really interesting. They didn't have one single athlete injured during the camp, which is virtually unheard of. And that's a big reason why a lot of the top sports teams are adopting this kind of in the locker room, but not saying a lot about it, because the company doesn't pay for any advertising or doesn't do marketing or doesn't do anything in the church.
Right.
So kind of interesting.
So the fact that they weren't robbing themselves of bicarbonates during this camp allowed them to not get injured? Or
Correct. Because they're not weakening the connective tissues around their musculatures and joints.
I would assume that they would probably be destroyed from years of abuse even prior to that. But I guess, you know, that the high level of activity increases the rate at which these transactions happen. So yeah, I guess that would make sense.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty fascinating when you get when you actually see people perform on the water versus off the water. And what's really interesting is when they've been on the water for a little while, the awareness of dehydration becomes far more acute. You become much more aware of when you're dehydrated. And some great ways to tell, and I've put a little list here on the screen, is how do you know if you're too acidic? Basically, if your blood pH is too acidic, this is when you're in those kind of dangerous states. Do you wake up tired, or do you get tired in the afternoon? Do sometimes you have difficulty thinking clearly? Negative outlook, pessimistic outlook. People that are drinking a lot of coffee or caffeine or energy drinks and stuff, they tend to become very acidic, and they get more pessimistic. When you wake up Monday morning or Sunday morning after a night partying, the world doesn't seem quite as optimistic as it did the night before.
Right.
Largely in part because the blood is kind of thickened. You know, we're talking about respiratory stiffness, acheness, and pain, like chronic aches and pains inside the body, which I had as an athlete. I just thought that was normal. You know, I just lived that way for since I was a teenager. I just thought you always had aches and pains. Well, now that's not the case. I don't have, even though I'm in my 40s, I don't have the stiffness, aches, and pains that are normally associated with athletes at that age. I'm just like, no, I feel great. I don't have these issues. And it's largely because I'm super hydrated all the time. So another thing is, when we talk about typical athletic diets, you know, they're filled with, you know, meat, poultry, dairy products, protein powders, nuts, refined sugars, you know, and then you get into all the other stuff. All of these things on this list here are acidifying. In other words, they're bringing more acid into the body. They're pushing the pH down, which is forcing your body to use more of these bicarbonate buffers. This is accelerating the degeneration inside your body, shortening your career and shortening your ability to achieve your goals. Plain and simple. Now, how this works.
I wonder, go back for a second, I have a question.
Yep.
So, you know, these things that are described as acid forming are a part of my diet. I'm assuming it's a part of the majority of the people listening's diet. You know, I do quite a bit of meat, protein powders, and nuts, dairy products, I mean, butter and whatnot. So, you know, to say that these things have a negative effect on the body, well, yeah, I could see that being the case. But I think more importantly is what we can do to counter the effects and create some balance in our diets. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, that's the thing. You know, I think if you go like to Czech, for example, they're like, well, 80% alkaline, 20% acid. That's kind of a positive. But if most people are in the Western world are drinking or consuming 80% acid, 20% alkaline.
Right.
So the thing is guys who are looking to build muscle, many of the products that assist in that process are acid forming. It's kind of an irony, catch-22.
Yeah.
And one of the easiest ways to counter that is to drink highly alkalinized water. Now, I want to share one quick difference between that. Let me actually, I'll get down there. There's a difference between alkaline water and alkalized water. Alkaline water means that you've added some minerals to the water. Like I could put calcium in the water, I could put sodium in the water, I could put magnesium in the water, and I will have an alkaline water. Okay? I can also use electrolysis, which is sending an electrical current through the water, and I can create a alkalized water, which is creating an active hydrogen. And when I do that, you're creating actually H3O2. That is what has the extra benefits to athletic performance. Straight alkaline water with like calcium or magnesium is not going to improve your athletic performance or your hydration level. And so I want to be clear about that. Alkalized water that has been altered through electrolysis, creating a different chemical structure, will improve your athletic performance. And there's a very big difference.
The minerals don't, and the ions do.
Well, first and foremost, minerals on their own, I'm not saying that they're not a beneficial component. I do believe that having mineral-rich water does have a benefit. But when you're looking at the Krebs cycle, and that is the cycle of energy production at the mitochondrial level, what happens is you burn an oxygen, and that creates what's called an O positive. You're really just burning off an electron. When you use electrolysis, you're not using H2O. You're actually creating an H3O, which has an extra negative ion from the extra hydrogen. Electrolysis separates the water. And then what happens is that negative hydrogen attracts to that burnt oxygen, the O positive. You create another H2O molecule and you get an extra oxygen. And this is what has the effect of extending athletic performance and improving energy and recovery.
It's that extra molecule, that extra oxygen molecule?
The extra hydrogen molecule.
I'm sorry, yeah, because that would be good.
Yeah.
The hydrogen molecule. Very good. Yeah, of course, minerals don't do that. They don't go through that process.
Well, and this was the part that really captured my attention when I first started examining water. All these people were taking water in a hospital situation. They were helping them recover from burns and injuries and gout and all these type of things. And this was used in Japan. It's got a medical history of over 40 years. I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. Well, somehow this water is improving those people's recovery in serious illness. So, well, if I drank this water, would it improve my recovery? You know, because I look at athletic performance as putting an extra stress on the body, just like a disease is putting extra stress. And sure enough, it did. And it was a number of years before I actually fully discovered what the mechanism was. It just kind of worked at first. And then as I examined it more and more, it is because of this extra electron. And of course, if you get right down to the biophysics or the biology of it, the only energy transfer in the body is called electron covalent transfer. And this H ion is the magic, if you'd say, the magic ingredient that makes alkalized water different than alkaline water. So I want to be clear on that because a lot of people get mixed up. Okay?
Gotcha.
So anytime you have an itis, like arthritis, tendonitis, these are all forms of inflammation. If a person suffers from cramping, especially in hot climates, tears or strains, if you're injuring yourself a lot, chances are you're chronically dehydrated. And, you know, of course, if they're following your program, their structure should be in order. I mean, obviously, you have a structural problem, that's one thing. But if you've got your structural problem, you're following Elliot's training programs, and you're doing what he suggests, your structure is going to balance out and be fine. And if you're still experiencing these type of challenges, you're dealing with chronic dehydration and over acidity. Okay, so to think about it, I mean, today's athletes are better conditioned, they're leaner, they're faster, they're stronger, they're just far superior to athletes of any generation, at least in modern history. But guess what? They're injured far more often than the athletes 20 years ago. And I believe a lot of it has to do with the poorer diets, more commercialized foods, consumption of sports drinks, which are contributing to a massive loss of minerals. And I also believe that dehydration is one of the big contributors to concussions in sports, because what's happening is people are using energy drinks and they're using stimulants, they're using all these highly acidic stimulants inside their products. And let's just look at this pH chart. Look at all the things that people are drinking. These things weren't available to athletes 70 years ago or 50 years ago or 30 years ago. There was no people weren't using the Gatorade. And by the way, the original Florida Gatorade tasted like crap if you've ever had it. We took it in a university in exercise physiology. It doesn't taste like this, the fruit drink that they make today, which tastes really good, but it's not that great for you. These are all the pH charts of these things. And so when you're talking with a thing like Kangen ionized water, it's 50 to 500 times more alkaline. And that allows you to remove the acid of the system, preserve your bicarbonate buffers, and add electrical hydrogen ions to the system, which improves your performance by acting as an intermediary in the Krebs cycle. That's the power of it. So let's kind of look at this over the long term. Did you follow me on that?
Yep. Okay,
great. So how does this work? I mean, people go, well, is this alkalinity a real thing? Every baby's born with perfect pH, perfect alkalinity. You think of a baby, they are really flexible, they have super soft skin, they smell amazing, right? They smell like a newborn baby. They recover very quickly. If they have any injuries or anything like that, they recover quickly. Now, that's because they're in a perfect pH level. As a person ages over 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years, a person gets chronically dehydrated, chronically acidic, and you see the same person ends up like grandma or grandpa. You can look at them. They're obviously dehydrated. They're not walking upright and straight anymore because they've given up so much of the bicarbonate buffers that their spine has been degenerated. Their bones have been degenerated, contributing to balance this over acidity. The recovery is very slow. They don't have the same energy. They degenerate and they don't heal quickly. And it's really a matter of pH. There's other factors involved, but it's just degeneration. Same thing as if people go through a stressful time in their life, or people get involved in drugs or chemicals or things like that. They'll notice that they start to age much more quicker, and that's because they're creating more free radicals, more oxidative damage inside the system. The other thing is people are consuming way more of this, performance junk food, that sort of stuff. I call it performance junk food. Things marketed as performance enhancers that are really just junk food. And that's another obstacle. What's really great is when a person starts drinking this water, it's amazing how a lot of those things that we used to consume or that wasn't so good for us just kind of falls away. You suddenly don't want it as much because your body has an innate genius to it. And once you start putting good things in, I never tell anybody to stop doing anything. I just say, just keep putting more good stuff in and the bad stuff will kind of fall away on its own. And that's one of the things that I found when I was drinking Kangen water is that it just made staying on a performance-based diet much more easier because I didn't have the cravings for all these other chemicals and stuff. Okay, so are we got any questions there? We're pretty clear?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about how we were discussing caffeine earlier and how, we slowly over our evolution of growing stronger just dropped it out of our lives. And I'm at the point now where I barely drink coffee. I mean, I kind of sip it because my wife makes it and then I'm out the door. And I don't miss it at all. I think about the days where, I'm drinking 3-4 cups of strong black coffee a day to get through, and I'm far more productive now than I've ever been, and no caffeine.
It's really interesting because caffeine is, especially up here. I'm up here in Vancouver, Canada, which is the Pacific Northwest, and this is the king of coffee land around here. And now there's a lot of performance stuff about coffee, and that's coffee does a few things. One, it stimulates brain activity, and it suppresses appetite. But over time, it creates subtle changes in pH that lead to levels of fatigue. You need to drink more of it. It also lowers pain tolerance, which is really interesting. As your pH starts to go down, your pain tolerance starts to lower. Weight management becomes a lot harder when you're highly acidic. Your recovery time starts to extend. Athletic performance is shift. Your enzyme productivity inside the body starts to lower. Enzymes are required for thinking and blinking. Delayed onset muscle soreness. Of course, my training partners, we thought we'd push ourselves to the limit using this. We were using Kangen water and some of our other products that we use. And we did a 250 set workout to see if we could handle it. And believe it or not, we felt all right. We didn't die. And it was about 3.5 hours straight out, and we felt great. We drank about I think 3 liters of water each during this. And that goes to lactate threshold and recovery time. We were able to do that kind of workout and that kind of volume because our lactate threshold, how much acidity we were dealing with, was able to be reduced much quicker, which extend the endurance, just like the NFL football players found under scientific experimentation. We experienced that anecdotally as well, and I've seen this hundreds and hundreds of times. So I think we covered most of that sort of stuff. Let's talk about the third thing. So the first thing about we're dealing with in the water is we're dealing with a high pH alkaline water. The second thing that we're dealing with is a negatively charged hydrogen, which is an alkalized water, which has energy and performance benefits. The third thing we're talking about is microclustering, or a smaller, wetter water. And if you check out a movie, it's I think it might be on the videos. It's called that you sent out. It's called Water: The Great Mystery. It's a beautiful movie. They actually have a little scene in here where they're showing under a microscope a person's blood before and after when they drink this water. It's quite remarkable. It's about a 2-minute clip inside that movie, but it shows how the water separates the blood cells and makes oxygen carrying capacity. But what's really interesting, it's going back to William Agaric the first that won the Nobel Prize. He said that water has what's called, it has a cluster. So water that comes out of your tap, for example, if you're drinking tap water, has about 15 of these, 20 of these molecules put together. These molecules create a large fat water molecule. So you never find just plain old H2O as one single molecule. It'll be a cluster of them. Now, if you're drinking water out of a tap, that's not really designed by nature. It travels at right angles, it's had chemical additives to it, and that causes the stickiness factor to make the smaller bigger. So I always like and aquaporins, the protein channels that let water into the cell and fluids out of the cell, okay, they let lower osmotic pressure, smaller molecules into the cells, and bigger molecules don't get in. And this is a very, very critical function, and that's why William Agaric won a Nobel Prize for this, because what's happening is people are drinking bottled water, they're drinking tap water, they're drinking reverse osmosis water that has these large clusters. It's like trying to throw a tennis ball through a chain link fence. What happens is the water sitting outside of the cell and not inside of the cell. And I believe this is one of the contributors. This is a theory. I want to be clear about that a lot of the increase in concussions that we're seeing in sports is because people are drinking beverages that are clustered together. The molecules are too big, and they're not actually getting inside the brain cells. They're sitting in the fluid outside of the brain cells, reducing the pressure inside the brain cells, and outside of the brain cells is increasing. And that makes you more susceptible to a concussion. And what's interesting, again, and this is only anecdotal, and this is not proven yet. However, I've taken literally hundreds of athletes who have suffered from concussions or have post-concussion syndrome, put them on the Kangen water, and it goes away in a few days.
Yes,
and
the brain's dehydrated.
It's the brain is not just dehydrated, chronically dehydrated, maybe even over decades, because high-performance athletes go through a lot of water.
Yeah.
So what these Japanese people figured out is if we can take tap water, we can filter it, get out all the chemicals, put it through electrolysis process like a lightning storm, or like what would happen in nature if it came down a waterfall, we can actually reduce the size of the molecule to a smaller cluster and add the charge. Now, what this does, according to William Agaric, is allows water to go into the cell better and hydrate you better. So we have a water that not only reduces free radical damage from oxidative chemicals, we have a water that boosts the pH and buffers the acids inside your body, preserving your mineral store and your connective tissue. We have a water that gets better into the cells. And when you can do that, you reduce things like delayed onset muscle soreness. We all have those workouts, and Elliot, I know you can, where you wake up the next day and like, oh my God, that seemed like a good idea yesterday, but I am feeling it.
Oh, it never is a good idea, and I know it's not a good idea, but I do it anyway.
Yeah, and it's just part of being an athlete. I mean, literally before I had this water, I just thought it was normal to be hurting in somewhere in my body all the time. And since that, it's, what I have after my hard workouts is I have a pleasant feeling. It's a sort of stiff, but I'm not stiff or I'm not disabled from the delayed onset muscle soreness, which is a really, really wonderful benefit. And that allows me to get back to the gym, train harder, faster, longer, and more frequently. So restructured water or ionized water, what it does is this. It optimizes hydration. It does this because of the smaller molecule size. It allows for better cell penetration. It improves hydrostatic pressure inside the cell. That means you have a better metabolism. Dehydration is a big factor in obesity, okay? It also improves the delivery of nutritional supplements. So any supplement you're taking, it'll actually serve as a delivering agent that you get more of that supplement inside your body because it's a better carrier. So in other words, if you're taking supplements, it's going to give you more bang for your buck. And that was one of the things as I was spending literally over $1,000 in nutritional supplements a month, and I reduced that to about a third of the costs.
Wow.
And as you know, I'm really big on developing high quality nutritional products and optimizers, and that was a big savings. You cut your bill, even if it's $100. If you can cut your bill down to $30, that's a win. If it's $200, you can cut it down to $60. Well, that's a win. So we'll kind of skip past this. I think do you have any questions here so far? Oh, one other thing I want to add: nervous system function. A lot of people today are suffering from they feel kind of foggy when they wake up, or they get on a computer for a long time, or they might have concentration problems. But this has to do with the way neural connectivity goes in your body. It also has to deal with oxygenation. If you have low pH, your VO2 max is going to be lowered. If you have low pH, you're going to have slower electrical transmissions, making it harder to concentrate, harder to focus, or harder to perform an advanced move physically. Many of the things that you teach require very, very quick nerve transmissions. And if you're in a state of dehydration, and from my experience, 95% of the population, and that's a conservative estimate, is walking into my clinic and they're dehydrated. You can go on, there's a variety of hydration tests that you can.
Hey, I just lost weight. Are you there, bud?
Right now, it's about time. I think we kind of got an idea here. There might be some questions that you might have, or listeners might have, and we can get into specifics, because I could go on for about 2 years here.
I like to ask a lot of questions also, and you've done a great job of clarifying a few things for me. But bottom line, as far as I'm concerned, I'm grateful to be able to use something like this, to have the technology to allow me to have the best water available. I often talk about becoming the strongest version of yourself, and if you're made up of 75% water and you're not doing what you can to get your hands on at least what's reasonable for you, then you're kind of dropping the ball. And I think Wade made it pretty clear on many of our practices. Let's turn on the camera so you can see me while I'm talking for a moment. Wade made it very clear that many of our practices, drinking bottled water, drinking many of the sports drinks that we drink, are not only helping you not become a stronger version of yourself, it's taking away from you. Just with regard to how your joints are affected. Many of us are here because fitness is important to us, but if we're engaged in lifestyle practices that take away from the connective tissue that we're looking to train and improve upon, then we're going backwards. And it's clear based on some of the statistics and studies that Wade just shared that many of us are injured, even concussioned, and gets concussions, and even our brain isn't working as well as it should had it been more hydrated. So I'm happy that you've shared thus far, my man. Unless there's any more education that you have within your slides, I'll go ahead and field a question or two if you want to do that.
Sure thing. What I will share is this, and one of the things that I'm always a big believer in is putting things to the test. And one of the things I did, I just started drinking the water, put it to the test, and it became self-evident. And I think you had the same experience. I mean, it's real easy to get lost in science and all that stuff, and I love all that stuff. Believe me, there's periodical reviews and scientists and experiments, but there's nothing like one's day to day, I go to the gym, I feel better. I go to the gym, I perform better. I go to the dinner table and I'm able to maintain my dietary lifestyle better. And that's what this water specifically does. So let's go open up the questions and
Sure.
we'll go at them.
Very good. So I'll start at the bottom because they're probably most relevant. Karam asks, is water from waterfalls naturally high alkaline even in this day and age? Wade, that's a great question because you and I discussed this. Yeah, tell us a little bit about water from waterfalls. Even.
It's a fantastic question, and I would say it depends on the waterfall. If you're looking at, say, Niagara Falls, famous falls in Canada, well, there's a lot of chemicals being pumped into that water. So whether the water is alkaline or not, I'm not sure. There's definitely going to be some chemicals to it. But what I can say for sure is this. If you're at the bottom of that waterfall, what happens is potential energy, the water being up high, gets turned into kinetic energy as it goes down. This creates an electrical charge to the water and creates the fog, it creates the ionization. If you're in that little boat like the Maid in the Mist down at the bottom of the ball, you are definitely getting an ionized effect, which differs from alkalinity. So there's a difference between the two. Ionization gives you an extra hydrogen electron. Alkaline water can be created by adding anything from, calcium, magnesium. You could put potassium cyanide in the water, and the water would be more alkaline.
Right.
But it would kill you.
Right.
You want to drink more water. So it's a good question. So the thing is, if you are in a pristine area, and again, it's going to determine the mineral components, what type of rocks is the water running over, and that's going to determine. So you can't say it's one way or the other. But good question.
Can I interject with something?
Yes, ma'am.
People are asking if Wade could show his face on video.
Handsome fella.
How do I do that, Kim?
You're going to have underneath the microphone. Well, we just lost Elliot. Hold on. Okay, we're both there.
How could you lose me? I'm right here.
All right, you guys are
I
there.
don't even know.
I'm going to mute. And Wade, you're both on, so cool.
All right,
How do I can't even see myself, but maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's a good thing.
Oh, there you are.
Let's go to the next question. Beyond Wade's face, there are some other inquiries. What are some tests, Christian Brown asked, what are some tests I can perform to know if I'm dehydrated?
Great question. The first thing I would suggest is this. The easiest one is looking at the color of your urine. If your urine is yellow and the darker the color, the more dehydrated a person tends to be. So for example, a great example is, let's say you go out and have some beers on Saturday night and you wake up in the morning. You can bet that your urine's probably going to be a very dark color. Same thing as if you're out on an athletic field, you're training hard, you're working out hard, you're going to come in, your urine's going to be a darker color. Your urine should be relatively clear. That is the easiest test. There's a lot of bioimpedance tests out there. You can Google them. I've gone on some extreme ones that would look at, the various levels of your organs and hydration, but that's the easiest level out there. The other thing is pH tests. You can do urine and saliva pH tests. I'm not a big fan of the strips because could be a lot of influences. Your hands can influence it, the age of the chemicals. That's one way to test your pH regularly. What you look for is changes, but the easiest is the urine color.
What other screen can you put up? You've got the non-jobs book me page right now showing.
Oh, is that Wade? Are we looking at Wade?
Again,
you can't get the strongest version of your water. What's the less stronger version of your water? That would be great.
I would search out a bottled spring water. But the great thing is when people start really examining water, we have a way that Kangen water won't cost the person anything if they look at the long run. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So the way a person's able to get a machine over time, it won't cost them anything. We have some unique programs that allows a person to reduce the cost, which is great.
Yeah. And that's a big part of what I've been thinking about as well. I talked about how much money I spent on bottled water, and then the cost for having an RO machine, and the maintenance of it and whatnot. So, over time, you want to make sure that your investment is what it could be. And I got to be honest here. I made kind of a joke at the gym the other day when we were talking about the Kangen water machine that we're using, and really, it's a matter of, for me, among many other things, it's a matter of not paying for so much damn water anymore. In fact, water should pay me. And it's a bit of an arrogant statement, but what I'm saying is that that I invest in and make sure that I am doing everything that I can to become a stronger version of myself, including investing in a water machine that those of us who are listening right now have an opportunity to invest in as well. And may or may not be of interest to you, but it also can pay you. I think it's a little bit ridiculous that we have to pay so much for water. Why should water not pay you? Water is life. Water is abundance. Let the water nourish you, and let the water pay you as well. I know we were
I've
going
got
that
something for
direction,
you
but
right now, Elliot, because this is huge for me. This is something and what we're doing with marketing, and talking about the Kangen water and Strength Camp, and why you brought the Kangen water to Strength Camp. So Wade, can you explain to everybody your 21-day fitness challenge? Because I think that's really important for fitness professionals.
Yeah, thank you very much for both of you for bringing that up. And I'll preclude that by saying this. There's another great documentary out there called Blue Gold, and it is the business of water as it is today. And I just read an article recently that places like Sao Paulo, Las Vegas, parts of California are going to start paying a lot more for their water as water levels start to diminish. And in the movie Blue Gold, it talks about the business of water and what's happening with 7 billion people on the planet growing exponentially, is that the demands on those tiny freshwater reserves are significant. And we're pretty much, if you do a little bit of research, we're pretty much past the point of tap water is something I can be the strongest version of myself. It's not going to work. That's not the case. Bottled water, not the case. Reverse osmosis, better, but not the case. And if we're looking to always improve, and I've tested over 150 different types of water technology, everything from pyramids and stuff like that. I mean, everything you imagine. What I always say is do a test. Put the water to the test. The first test I did is I drank 4 glasses really quickly and I jumped up and down. The water didn't slosh in my guts. I was like, okay, there's something different is happening here. And that led me to investigation. So this developed into what I call the 21-day challenge. And when I first started experimenting with the water, we had people coming into my holistic clinic in Vancouver, and we'd give them a water test. And I'd say, okay, for the next 21 days, we're not going to do anything with your nutrition. We're not going to give you any more testing. We're just going to give you 1 ounce per pound of body weight of this Kangen water and see what happens. And what we found, and when I didn't know it was 21 days. I didn't know that. I was like, we're just going to do this and we're going to keep seeing you every week and see what happens. By 21 days, virtually everyone that followed the protocol was fully hydrated, had a fully pH, and half of the problems that they had, they come in to see me and they just went away. This was like, it was kind of bad for business in one way because, well, then I couldn't sell them all of the other stuff. It was water. And I wasn't interested in the business. I wasn't interested in having a water business per se. I wasn't interested in stuff. I was just interested in helping the people that were in front of me get healthier, get better. And so what we started is we started doing this 21-day challenge. And let me just see if I can click on my screen here and pull this up. And that's basically, a lot of gym owners have been doing this. I know we have a few people on the program, some of the Strength Camp mentees, I should say, the people inside your inner circle are doing this. And that is, we start people out drinking 8.5 pH on the Kangen machine, then we move them into 9.0 in week 2 and 9.5 in week 3. Some of these athletic guys that we have here, we could probably do that a little faster. I went faster than that. We drink 1 ounce per pound of body weight per day for 21 days. And that virtually will change all the water in your body. One of the things that we suggest is people drink first thing in the morning instead of doing coffee or anything else. You just drink a quart. It's great. Like I got the best drinking device in the world, I think, is a mason jar. You just drink one of these. Drink one of those to start the day. People are looking to get leaner. Drink one of these before, 30 minutes before every meal. It's amazing what it'll do to reduce your appetite. And of course, I always recommend 1 quart per hour of exercise. So for every hour, so if the average person's drinking 3-4 liters a day, add another quart of water. And when you do that with Kangen water, you're going to experience a radical difference. And of course, for businesses who are doing this, this can be a wonderful source of revenue and also a wonderful source of self-improvement for the individuals, because some really remarkable things start to happen to a person's body when they get fully hydrated. They remove the acidic waste out of the body, and they're pouring massive amounts of electrical-based antioxidants inside the system. Amazing things can happen. And I can't legally share all that sort of stuff in this FTC, FDA world, but I can tell you this. Anyone that goes through that program is going to notice a significant difference in how they feel.
And here's something else, too, that we had discussed, because I work with you guys very closely with this. Part of the mastermind group at the Non-Jobs program, we have some top-notch fitness professionals that have very successful gyms. And you shared with 1 or 2 of those guys revenue streams that they could
Yes.
use in their business with the Kangen water and the 21-day challenge, and the fact that they could actually bottle their own water versus having somebody else bring in bottled water. Can you talk a little bit about that for me?
Well, there's a lot of options out there depending on the person. So what I would say is this: if you are a fitness professional, or if this is, whether you own a gym, you're a trainer, you're a nutritionist, or you're moving into this avenue, what you need to do is you need to book an appointment with us, and we can kind of share how this could fit inside your business model as a revenue stream. I don't want to kind of learned in my entire career, which has been over, oh my God, it's over 25 years now, Elliot. I've been doing health and wellness, is I only advocate what I do personally. If I don't do it personally, it doesn't work for me personally, I'm not advocating. And one of the things that I love about Elliot's stuff is whatever he's doing, he's sharing it because this is what he does. It's not like reading an article in a magazine or seeing a video of somebody's creating an NV Studios. This is him in the gym, him doing stuff, him at home. It's what's really happening, and that's what we're doing here. Same thing. So the first step is, how do I get a machine to get started? We have machines that run anywhere from $1,500 up to $6,000 for the big commercial super deluxe program. If you book a time, what we'll do is we'll figure out what's the right one for your budget. Right? Where does a person get started in this? I know Elliot has a $4,000, like the deluxe. 95% of people buy that, but maybe that's not in your budget. We've got ways around that to get you started in a smaller machine as well. Second thing is, if you are in a business situation that you want or looking for a revenue stream, book a time and say that, and then we'll share with you the options that you have from a business side of things. I don't want to go off on a tangent for the people that aren't in a business situation, because I know that varies with the thing, and we don't know. There's 275 people on the line. I want to be clear. So we'll go for that. So how do we get on that, Kim?
You want to go to the screen? I've got the screen where the
estrogens or affect estrogen levels, not acid per se. However, some of the chemicals present could contribute to acidification. It depends on the type of plastic used. There are some plastics that won't, like non-porous plastics that you can use. So again, it goes to the type and quality of plastics. Pretty much any of those bottles that are kind of easy to crush or small, are kind of flimsy, those are the ones that are usually causing you problems. And you'll see those non-porous type of plastic bottles that are used. If you can, use glass. You'll break more bottles, but it's better for you.
All right, Henry, who is from Finland, has asked how to get a machine, but does Kangen water help to rebuild the broken cell bridges that are destroyed when cells are oxidated from free radicals?
Very good technical question. Of course, with any technical question, I can't say that Kangen water can treat or cure any illness or damage in the body because I'm not licensed to do so. What I can say is this. Kangen water will improve and accelerate hydration in the body and provide a rich source of electrical-based antioxidants which have been shown to accelerate the recovery process in a variety of physical conditions. And the one we're talking about specifically is training and athletic performance. However, the anecdotal testimonials are extraordinary, but due to FTC legalities, I'm not able to share them on a live conference call as such, and that's just the world we live in, unfortunately. However, it has a history in Japanese hospitals for over 40 years, so that should give you some indication.
Okay. Katie is asking, is even BPA-free bottles of water harmful as well?
You know, this is a really great question because depending on the BPA-free, there seems to be some research demonstrating that there may be some other chemicals that are leaching into the water that may not be beneficial. So to be on the safe side, go with glass.
Okay. Is there an affiliate program for selling this?
Absolutely, there is an affiliate program that is with it. The compensation program is quite generous, and for those of you who are looking to get involved with that, I would suggest booking a time, and then we'll get on the human blood. And this is an exponential scale. It's a log 10. So the difference between, say, 6 and 7 is times 10. The difference between 7 and 5 is times 100. The difference between 7 and 4 is times 1,000. So you can see the various pH levels change significantly. Now, this is indicated by colors. So when I normally do experimentations, or if you watch the Bobby Gridelli video that was sent out, what you'll see is we could do a pH test using a liquid drops that'll tell the pH levels of the various beverages that we do. Anything over in this range is acidifying. So if it's yellow or red or orange or that sort of thing, this is acidifying to the body. If it's over to this side, blue, and then kind of like what I call electric blue up in around here around 9.5, this is going to have an alkalizing effect on the body. And that this is the range that you're going to get the best benefits performance-wise and the preservation of your bicarbonate buffer reserves, those things that preserve your connective tissues and joints.
Well, and actually I want to see if, Henry, do you have a live mic? Raise your hand if you have a mic, and you can actually talk to Wade live. That would be pretty cool.